It's just a different type of freedom. It's like it is just a getaway. It's just your own space. You're on the bike and you're just flying around, and it is just like you've got your own time to yourself. And it's just I really like it. I'd say it's more positive than you can have negative.
Chris Ganley, racer and former soldier from Somerset, who suffered life-changing injuries and lost his left arm in a motorcycle race. Despite his brush with death, Chris's injuries did not stop him from continuing to race.
Down in Kent sits Brands Hatch Circuit. I've come here today to witness this dangerous road race and find out just what drives these riders to test their motorbikes and put themselves at risk.
I started racing about 2.5 seasons ago, so roughly just over 2 years. This for me is freedom, and until you actually go through it, you'll never understand. Everything's got their own risks. There's people that go parachuting. Parachute doesn't always open. I've found a few friends in Headley Court. They've had bits where the chutes close, and then they fall 100 foot. And I mean, so it doesn't matter what sport you do, there's always going to be a risk.
Motorcycle racing is a popular competitor and spectator sport in Great Britain. Despite all the best effort of organising bodies and redesign of circuits, there have been many rider deaths recorded due to the hazardous nature of the sport. On-site Dr. Peter Hughes at Brands Hatch has seen a number of accidents over the past 10 years.
I mean, obviously motorsport is a very, very dangerous sport. You look around the track, you see the signs everywhere. It's a very, very fast sport. We do lots of things to try and make it safer. Have a look around any track, you've got massive gravel runoff areas. The barriers are away from the track. There's marshals at every single loads of different points that can help stop any behaviour that shouldn't be happening. Having said that, I did a test day for another group and I had 2 serious life-changing injuries. It's a bit hit and miss really. I've been unfortunate. I've seen a fatal Donington Park a few years ago. A rider unfortunately lost his life from an injury.
Well, after the accident, everyone sees that I'm missing my arm, but there was a lot of other things that were involved as well. My right arm is rebuilt from my elbow down, put back together. Broke all my ribs down one side, popped lung, broke my back in 3 places, had a massive bleed to the brain. Once I lost my arm, there was a lot of negativity that came from a lot of people going, well, you can't do it, you won't do it. And it's just nice being able to prove people wrong.
The reason I do this sport is because it's an adrenaline rush, and the danger creates more adrenaline, and that's why they like doing it. So you try and control the controllables. It's things like not riding a bike that's too fast for you. Think about where it's the right time to overtake, and just not being too aggressive.
I always think that when I go out, I can always be faster because I could have been faster if I had 2 arms. And I keep using that as a drive just to keep pushing me forwards. I think the worst bit is how people looked at me afterwards. I actually got Headley Court to make me a prosthetic as quickly as possible. But because I've ripped all the nerves out in my shoulder, even if I had an arm I couldn't use it. The arm that they had to make me went over the shoulder and then up to here, so it was a plastic cover that took the weight through above my shoulder so I could have an arm, and it was the most painful thing I ever put on. I put myself in pain for other people, and it's like, well, no, I'm finding myself now.
Motorcycle racing is an expensive sport to get involved in. A tyre bill can come anything from £300 up to £1,000 on a weekend racing, and tough decisions have to be made.
Motorcycle racing is an expensive sport, but there's no written rule to how much you have to spend. It's all about how competitive you are and who you want to beat. So let's find out why racing is so expensive.
Motorsport's definitely expensive, just the kit, like the bikes and everything. To win a championship, you've got to arguably have the best bike.
Dan Milner is a racer and hydraulic engineer who's committed his life to motorsport.
Someone's got to build the bike, someone's got to maintain it. It's consumables like the tyres, the brake pads. It's a massive cost. It's the biggest cost really. Whereas for football you can just get away with a pair of boots and shin pads maybe in a cheap kit from Decathlon. But with the motorbikes, it's to have your bike in top condition every round. You've really got to throw the money at it. The entry fees, the fuel costs, all the logistics of everything, it's about £1,000 a month. And some people have that money, some people don't. Unfortunately, at the moment, I've got that spare money. The motorbike money goes out, and then the rest of my life is budgeted on what spare cash I've got. The bikes have to be your priority. There's no other way about it.
Sponsorship in the sport can be really difficult. The best way to gain sponsorship is not to ask for money, ask for support. Because if people supply you with brake pads, oil, products, that's then money back in your pocket for you then to spend on other areas of your racing, i.e. entry fees, track time, testing. You've got to remember that you are there promoting your sponsor. It is an expensive sport depending what you want to do. You can throw as little or as much at this as you want. You know, there are riders that will throw everything at it. The way I look at it is, if he comes back in one piece, I'm delighted.
Dan's obsession with motorcycle racing is taking over his girlfriend's life, as she has to support him throughout his journey of racing.
The thing that I contribute in is food-wise, so it takes me a lot of preparation. I prepare a month before the race starts. I go through what is suitable for him, what can give him more energy and stuff, and that costs around £50 just for preparation. All his wage goes on 3 days basically.
Being able to carry out, say, repairs and fault finding on your own, it's a lot easier because you're not relying on other people and trying to seek that information. You can sort of just try and go through a statistical fault finding process, and that does take a bit of pressure off when you're not guessing as much. A big disadvantage of being mechanically minded, especially for myself, is I can overthink stuff. So if something just a little bit goes wrong, if you're not mechanically minded, you can ride around it, you can sort of ignore it and find a way around it, but my head just starts thinking, it could be this, could be that affecting that, and that just puts me off my rhythm, and sometimes it just unsettles me, a bit like today really.
Set a budget, don't go over it, because that's the point. I've seen people bankrupt themselves because of the sport, because it is a drug. You know, you want to come in, you want to be the best, you want to do your best, you want to show everybody how good you are, you want to show the sponsors how good you are, and to do that they throw money at it. Whereas what I try and explain to them is, it's fun.
It is clear that motorcycle racing has high physical demands, but what about the psychological effects that riders have to deal with? In my last piece, we met racer Dan Milner. His dad Chris has been supporting him throughout his racing journey, but still worries about his safety.
It's a process of highs and lows, isn't it? Obviously you're trying to win, but to get there, lots of things can happen. You can have an accident, or the motorcycle can break down, you've got to repair it. It affects everybody that's watching really, because obviously you want them to win and you're trying to help them win, but also you've got to help them through those downtimes again. There's a lot of support goes into it. If you're supporting him, you've got to be settled and needs to be in the right frame of mind to do it. You're worrying about those things as well, aren't you?
Lucy Walking is a nurse who helps supporting her racer son mentally to keep him on the right track before he goes out to race.
You have to be mentally strong because there's a lot going off and there's a lot of worry and you're continually pushing yourself. There's a lot of training, there's a lot linked to your diet and stuff like that, and I know sometimes that's what worries Dan, is that he's not done as well prior to a race before that, and he has to go through a lot mentally. I think you have to be mentally strong, that if you have a negative result or you've crashed or something, you have to be strong. If you weren't mentally strong, you'd be like, right, I'm giving up, that's it, I'm not doing it again. I could worry a bit too much when he's not done as well as he thought, so I can get a little bit upset that I know how he's feeling and I don't want him to feel like that, so I try and encourage him to get through it. It can affect him for a couple of days afterwards, mental health wise, probably put him in quite a low mood and stuff, but once he's got his head around it, it's positive thoughts that come out of the situation.
After the big accident that he had, that was quite traumatic. One of those situations where you react to it at the time, but it takes a little while to think about exactly what happened.
According to sports psychologist AJ Clarica, motor racing is one of the most physically and mentally challenging of all sports. Riders are exposed to a complex interaction of physical, mechanical and mental stresses. Now this means that psychological strategies and behavioural awareness are all meaningful contributors to a successful performance.
Is racing around a motorbike around a circuit worth the risk? I don't really know if it is or not, but I've said to him after the accident, I don't particularly like you doing it, but I will support you in every way I can. What goes through your head? The first thing is just the lack of information you've got. You don't know how badly somebody is injured, and then it's thinking about other people as well. Wife, other relatives. How can you explain this to them? You've got to be strong for other people.
On one of his races, I knew he'd done well in the morning and that was good and I spoke to him, but the one in the afternoon, I didn't know that he'd had problems with his tyre. So when I was watching it, I could see he got a good start, but then I could see him going down. I didn't know what was going off, and then I knew that he was going to be upset. I found it very, very anxious and everything not being there, and I absolutely hated it.
For such a demanding sport, riders are faced with continuous pressure to perform and win. Whether the positives of this sport outweigh the negatives is a discussion that will likely go on for a while.